I stood in my childhood driveway at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, single duffel bag in hand, watching my father scream from the porch, "Get out and never come back." Those 6 words cut through the humid Georgia air like a blade. My mother stood behind him, arms crossed, silent. I had been paying their mortgage for 3 years without them knowing the full amount. The fight started because I refused to lend my brother money again. $1,800 a month I had been covering while they treated me like I was the problem. I got in my truck, hands shaking, and drove away. I had no idea that leaving would cost them everything. The apartment I found was small, a 1-bedroom place on the east side of town with beige carpet and a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. But it was mine. No one could tell me to get out. No one could scream at me for setting boundaries. I moved in that first weekend with help from my best friend Marcus, who worked with me at Henderson Manufacturing, where I was a mechanical engineer. He did not ask many questions, just helped me carry boxes and bought pizza afterward. For 3 days, I kept checking my phone. Some pathetic part of me expected an apology, or at least a call asking if I was okay. Nothing came. On the 3rd day, my mother sent a text message. "Your father is still angry. Give him time." That was it. No acknowledgement of what he had said to me. No recognition that maybe, just maybe, they had gone too far. I need to back up and explain how I got here, because none of this makes sense without context. I have been the responsible one since I was 16 years old. That was when my father's construction business started having serious problems. Jobs dried up during the recession, and he made some bad bids that lost money. Our family went from comfortable to struggling almost overnight. My younger brother Tyler was only 14 then, and my parents shielded him from everything. But me? I was old enough to help, so I got a job at an auto parts store, working 20 hours a week while finishing high school. I gave most of my paycheck to my parents for household expenses. They never asked me to do it. I just saw the stress on my mother's face and the anger in my father's eyes, and I wanted to help. After graduation, I enrolled at the community college and kept working, kept contributing. I transferred to the state university after 2 years, finally moved out to a dorm, but even then I came home most weekends and brought groceries or gave my mother cash. Tyler, meanwhile, coasted. He graduated high school with barely passing grades, never held a job for more than a few months, and developed a drinking problem by his mid-20s. He is 28 now, and still lives in his childhood bedroom. But my parents never held him accountable. It was always excuses. He is going through a hard time. He is trying to figure things out. He just needs more support. 3 years ago, I was 29 years old with a good engineering job and finally making decent money. I had been thinking about buying my own house when my mother called me one evening, her voice tight with stress. She told me they were 2 months behind on the mortgage. The bank had sent threatening letters. They were terrified of losing the house. My father's business had never really recovered, and they were living month to month with no cushion. I went over that night and looked at their finances. It was worse than I thought. The mortgage payment was $1,800 a month, and they were bringing in maybe $3,000 total between my father's sporadic construction jobs and my mother's part-time work at a dental office. After utilities, insurance, food, and other basics, there was nothing left, and they were still giving Tyler money. I made a decision that night. I set up automatic payments from my bank account directly to their mortgage company, $1,800, every month, coming out of my paycheck before I even saw it. But I did not tell them the full truth. I told them I was helping out with a few $100s here and there. I let them think they were still covering most of it themselves. Why? Because I knew if they understood the full extent, they would take it for granted. They would expect it forever, and I wanted them to feel like they were still standing on their own feet, even though I was holding them up. For 3 years I lived frugally. My apartment was cheap. I drove a 10-year-old truck. I packed lunch for work every day. I watched my coworkers buy houses and take vacations while I kept my parents afloat. And the whole time, They never really thanked me. They never acknowledged what I was sacrificing. In fact, they kept criticizing me. Why was not I married yet? Why did not I have a bigger career? Why was I still renting? Meanwhile, Tyler drifted through life. He talked about starting businesses, various schemes that always needed seed money. My parents would give him cash, and the ventures would collapse within months. A pressure washing company, a lawn care service, a food truck idea that never got past the planning stage. Thousands of dollars disappeared into Tyler's dreams, and I said nothing because I did not want to cause conflict. Then, 3 weeks ago, Tyler called me at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. He was drunk, slurring his words. He needed $1,200. Some buddies had fronted him money for something. He would not say what, and now they were demanding payment. He made vague threats about what would happen if he did not pay. I could hear the desperation in his voice, but I could also hear the manipulation. This was not the first time. I had lent Tyler money at least 6 times over the years, small amounts that he never paid back. I told him no. I told him he needed to figure it out himself, that I was done, enabling his irresponsibility. He called me selfish and hung up. 20 minutes later, my father called. He had clearly been drinking too. He launched into a tirade about family loyalty, about how Tyler was in real trouble, and I was abandoning him. I tried to explain that giving Tyler money was not helping him, that he needed to face consequences and get his life together. My father was not hearing it. The argument escalated. I said things I had been holding back for years. I told him Tyler was a 30-year-old child, and they had created this monster by never holding him accountable. I told him I was tired of being the responsible one who got no respect while Tyler got endless chances. My father's voice went cold. He told me if I felt that way, maybe I should not come around anymore. I told him maybe I would not. I hung up, my hands shaking. An hour later, I got a text from my mother. "Your father wants to talk to you. Come over tomorrow." I should have known better, but I went. I thought maybe we would have a calm conversation, clear the air. Instead, when I pulled into the driveway that Tuesday night, both my parents were waiting on the porch. Tyler was there too, standing behind them with his arms crossed and a smug look on his face. My father started in immediately. He called me selfish, ungrateful, a bad son, and a bad brother. He said everything I had ever done for them was just me trying to feel superior. My mother nodded along, adding that I had always been cold and judgmental. I tried to defend myself, but my father cut me off. "Get out and never come back." The words hung in the air. I looked at my mother, waiting for her to say something, anything. She just stared at me with hard eyes. Tyler actually smiled, so I left. I went back to my apartment, threw some clothes in a duffel bag, and decided I was done. Completely done. And the next morning, in the raw aftermath of hurt and anger, I logged into my bank account and canceled the automatic mortgage payment. On day 5 after leaving, Tyler called me. He was drunk again, his words tumbling over each other. He called me selfish for abandoning the family, said I was tearing everyone apart. I asked him if he had any idea what I had been doing for them. He laughed bitterly and hung up. That was when I started to realize Tyler knew something. There was an edge to his words, a knowing quality, but I could not figure out what. Day 7 arrived. Marcus took me out to a barbecue place on the south side of town, a little joint with checkered tablecloths and the best pulled pork in the county. Over plates piled high with meat and coleslaw, I told him the whole story. Marcus listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he leaned back and said something that stuck with me. "You did the right thing. They were using you. They will not understand that until they have to stand on their own." That evening, back at my apartment, I checked my email. There was an automated message from the mortgage company, sent 4 days earlier. It confirmed that my auto payment had been successfully canceled per my request. The next payment was due in exactly 3 weeks. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. My parents had no idea. They thought the mortgage was being paid like always. In 3 weeks, they would get a notice from the bank, and for the first time in my life, I would not be there to fix it. I sat there for a long time, my laptop glowing in the dark apartment. Part of me felt sick with guilt. Part of me felt a cold, hard satisfaction. They told me to never come back. They meant it. So I would let them learn what my absence actually cost. Week 2 began with me throwing myself into work. Henderson Manufacturing was in the middle of a major project, redesigning a component for an industrial compressor system. I volunteered for extra hours, stayed late running simulations, double-checked calculations until my eyes blurred. Anything to keep my mind occupied. My supervisor, Sharon, noticed. She was a woman in her mid-50s, sharp and direct, with gray streaks in her dark hair that she wore pulled back in a practical ponytail. One afternoon, she stopped by my workstation and asked if everything was okay. I hesitated, then gave her a brief version of what happened. I did not mention the mortgage payments, just said I had a falling out with my parents and was trying to move forward. Sharon leaned against the desk and looked at me thoughtfully. I went through something similar with my own family. Different details, same dynamic. I was the one everyone relied on until I set a boundary. Then suddenly I was the villain. She paused. Sometimes the only way they learn your value is when you are gone. Those words settled over me like a blanket. Validation from someone who understood. Sharon did not know the half of what I had done for my parents, but she did not need to. She recognized the pattern. I also started going to the gym during week 2. There was a 24-hour place near my apartment, mostly empty at 6 in the morning when I showed up. I ran on the treadmill until my legs burned and lifted weights until my arms shook. The physical exhaustion helped. For a few hours each day, I was too tired to think about my family. Week 3 arrived with the kind of humid heat that makes your shirt stick to your back the moment you step outside. Georgia, in June. I was getting ready for bed around 11:30 on a Wednesday night when someone started pounding on my apartment door. Not knocking, pounding. The sound echoed through my small space, aggressive and demanding. I looked through the peephole and saw Tyler. He was swaying slightly, his face flushed and his eyes unfocused. Drunk. I did not open the door. The pounding continued. "Open up, Jonathan. I know you are in there." His words were slurred. "We need to talk. More pounding, harder now. You cannot just abandon everyone. You are ruining everything." A neighbor's door opened down the hall. An older man poked his head out, looking irritated. "Everything okay?" Before I could answer, Tyler kicked my door. The sound was explosive in the quiet hallway. "I am talking to my brother. Mind your own business." The neighbor disappeared back inside, and I heard him on the phone, presumably calling the building security. Tyler kept yelling, "You think you are better than us? You always did. Dad was right about you. You are selfish. You are destroying this family." I stood there, my heart racing, saying nothing. Part of me wanted to open the door and confront him. Part of me knew that was exactly what he wanted. So I waited. 5 minutes later, 2 security guards arrived. I heard them talking to Tyler in calm, firm voices. "Sir, you need to leave. This is private property. You are disturbing residents." Tyler argued with them, his voice rising and falling. I could not make out all the words, but I caught enough. Something about family emergency, about his brother being cruel, about needing to make things right. The guards were not having it. They escorted him out. I watched through the peephole as they walked him past my door, one guard on each side. Tyler turned his head as they passed, staring directly at my door like he could see through it. "You will regret this," he shouted. "All of it." After they left, I sat on my couch in the dark. Tyler's words echoed. "You are ruining everything." He knew something. He had to. But what? The mortgage payment was not due for another week. Unless my parents had checked their bank account and noticed something was off. Unless they had put the pieces together. I almost called my mother right then. My finger hovered over her contact, but I stopped myself. They had kicked me out. They had chosen Tyler over me, again. Whatever consequences were coming, they had earned them. Week 4 arrived. The mortgage payment was now officially due. I knew the exact date, had it marked in my mental calendar. I imagined my parents opening their mailbox and finding the notice from the bank. Payment not received. Your account is delinquent. I pictured my mother's face going pale, my father's jaw tightening. Twice that week, I logged into my bank account and stared at the transfer screen. It would be so easy. One click and $1,800 would flow to the mortgage company. Problem solved. I could be the hero again, the responsible son who saves the day. But I did not click. I closed my laptop and went to the gym instead. I told myself what Marcus had said, what Sharon had said. They needed to stand on their own. I had been their crutch for too long. On day 5 of week 4, a Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Mom calling. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen for 3 rings, 4, 5. Then I answered. Her voice was tight and controlled, the tone she used when she was furious but trying to stay calm. Jonathan, why did you stop paying the mortgage? No hello. No how are you. Just immediate accusation. What? I said, though I knew exactly what she was talking about. The bank sent a notice. We are behind on the payment. She paused. Your father and I checked the bank records going back. You have been paying the full amount? The entire mortgage? Why did you not tell us? I stayed silent, my mind racing. We thought you were just helping with a few $100s here and there. Her voice rose slightly. Jonathan, answer me. Why did you stop? Something inside me went cold and hard. You told me to get out and never come back. I am just doing what you asked. The house is your responsibility now, but we are family. You cannot just abandon us. Her voice cracked. We could lose the house. That is interesting. Where was that energy when Dad was screaming at me on the porch and you just stood there? I kept my voice calm, almost clinical. You did not defend me. You did not tell him he was out of line. You just watched him throw me out like garbage. Jonathan, this is not about that. This is about the house. No, I said. This is about the fact that you only value me when I am useful. For 3 years, I paid your mortgage. I sacrificed buying my own house, building my own life, to protect yours. And you never even knew. You never thanked me, because you did not know the full extent. And the moment I set one boundary with Tyler, you kicked me out. We did not mean it like that. Yes, you did. Dad said never come back. Those were his exact words. So I am gone. And all the things I was doing for you? Those are gone too. My mother was crying now, but it sounded like angry crying. You are being cruel. I am being honest. There is a difference. I took a breath. You wanted me gone. Now you have what you wanted. Figure out your mortgage on your own. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. I set the phone down on my kitchen counter and stared at it like it might explode. That should have felt triumphant. It should have felt like victory, like finally standing up for myself. Instead, I felt hollow. 3 years of sacrifice, erased. A lifetime of trying to be good enough, ended with a phone call. But underneath the hollow feeling was something else. Something solid. For the first time in my life, I had set a boundary and held it. I had said no and meant it. My parents could not guilt me, could not manipulate me, could not make me fold. I did not know it then, but that phone call was just the beginning. The next morning my phone started buzzing at 7:15. Text messages, one after another, flooding in so fast I could barely read them. I sat up in bed and scrolled through the growing list. My Aunt Linda, my father's sister. Jonathan, what is going on? Your mother called me in tears. My Uncle Frank, also on my father's side, heard about the situation, very disappointed in you. My cousin Jessica. Is it true you are letting your parents lose their house? More and more messages poured in. Relatives I had not spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about my choices. The story they had been told was clearly one-sided. Selfish son abandons elderly parents in their time of need. No mention of being kicked out. No mention of 3 years of secret payments. No mention of the years of being taken for granted. I did not respond to any of them. What was the point? They had already decided I was the villain. By day 3 after the phone call, I had 17 messages from extended family members and 12 missed calls. I turned off my phone during work hours just to function. The stress was affecting my concentration. I made a calculation error on a project that Sharon caught before it went further, and she pulled me into her office. "You need to take care of yourself," she said gently. "Whatever is happening with your family, do not let it destroy your career." "I am trying," I told her. "It is just harder than I expected." She nodded. "It always is." That afternoon, I made the mistake of turning my phone back on during my lunch break. There was a voicemail from Uncle Frank, left an hour earlier. I listened to it in my truck, parked in the far corner of the employee lot. His voice was cold and harsh. "Jonathan, I do not know what has gotten into you, but this behavior is disgraceful. Your parents raised you, fed you, clothed you, and this is how you repay them? Letting them lose their home? Your grandmother would be ashamed. You need to fix this immediately and apologize to your mother. She is heartbroken. Call me back." I deleted the message and sat there, gripping the steering wheel. My grandmother would be ashamed. That line cut deep because my grandmother had been the one person in my family who truly saw me, who valued me. She passed away 4 years ago, and I still missed her. Using her memory as a weapon felt particularly cruel. Day 5 after the phone call brought an escalation I did not see coming. I was at my desk, reviewing stress test data on a valve assembly, when the receptionist called my extension. "Jonathan, you have a visitor in the lobby." She hesitated. "It is your mother." My stomach clenched. "What?" "Your mother is here. She is asking to see you." I went down to the lobby, my mind spinning. My mother stood near the glass entrance doors, wearing a floral dress and clutching her purse with both hands. Her eyes were red and puffy. When she saw me, she rushed forward. "Jonathan, please, we need to talk." People in the lobby were staring. The receptionist looked uncomfortable. I kept my voice low. "Mom, you cannot be here. This is my workplace." I did not know what else to do. "You will not answer my calls." She raised her voice slightly, tears streaming down her face. "We are going to lose everything. Do you understand that? Everything." Sharon appeared from the hallway, taking in the scene. She walked over calmly. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. This is not an appropriate place for family discussions." My mother turned to Sharon, desperation in her eyes. "Do you know what my son is doing? He is letting his father and me lose our home. We raised him. We sacrificed for him. And now he has abandoned us." "Ma'am," Sharon repeated, firmer now, "you need to leave, or I will call security." My mother looked back at me, her expression shifting to something harder. "Your father had a health scare last night. Chest pains. We almost called an ambulance. The stress you are causing could kill him. Do you want that on your conscience?" That hit me like a punch to the gut. My father had a history of high blood pressure. Chest pains could be serious, could be a heart attack. I opened my mouth to respond, but Sharon stepped between us. "Ma'am, you need to leave now." She gestured to the security guard who had appeared near the doors. My mother stared at me for another long moment, then turned and walked out, her shoulders shaking. I stood there, frozen. Sharon touched my arm gently. "Come to my office." I followed her in a daze. She closed the door behind us and gestured for me to sit. "Is your father okay?" she asked. "I do not know." I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. "Maybe, She could be exaggerating to manipulate me, or it could be real. I do not know. Call and find out. But do it from here, not the lobby. And Jonathan? She waited until I looked up at her. You are going to have to document this. HR will need a report about what just happened. The weight of that settled on me. My mother had caused a scene at my workplace. This was now a professional issue, not just a personal one. I called my father's cell phone. He answered on the third ring, his voice gruff. What? Mom said you had chest pains last night. Are you okay? There was a pause. I am fine. Just indigestion. Your mother overreacted. Relief and anger flooded through me in equal measure. So you did not almost have a heart attack? No. But the stress you are causing is real. We are losing the house because of you. No, I said, my voice harder than I intended. You are losing the house because you cannot afford it. I was covering your mortgage for 3 years without you even realizing it. I was your safety net. And the moment I set one boundary, you kicked me out. That is on you, not me. You always were selfish. Your brother said you would do something like this. Tyler. Always Tyler. Did you ever consider that maybe Tyler is the problem? That maybe enabling him for 30 years has created this mess? My father's voice went cold. Do not call here again. He hung up. I sat in Sharon's office, staring at my phone. The health scare had been exaggerated, maybe even fabricated, to manipulate me. My mother had come to my workplace and caused a scene. My entire extended family had turned against me based on a false narrative. And through it all, Tyler was in the background, pulling strings. Day 7 brought a new twist. I logged into social media that evening, something I rarely did anymore, and saw that Tyler had posted something. It was a long, emotional paragraph about family loyalty and how some people forget where they came from. He did not name me directly, but it was obvious. The post had dozens of comments from people I went to high school with, extended family members, and people I barely knew. Most of them were sympathetic to Tyler, expressing shock and disappointment at whoever had abandoned their family. A few people defended me. Marcus commented, "There are always 2 sides to every story. Maybe get all the facts before judging." But he was drowned out by the chorus of condemnation. I closed the app and threw my phone on the couch. My character was being assassinated publicly. People who did not know the full story were making judgments. And Tyler, who had contributed nothing to the family for years, was being painted as the victim. On day 10 after the phone call, I got home from work to find an envelope taped to my apartment door. No stamp, no return address, just my name written in neat handwriting. I took it inside and opened it carefully. It was a letter from a law office. Baxter and Associates, attorneys at law. I read the first paragraph and felt my blood go cold. Dear Mr. Jonathan Hayes, this letter serves as formal notice that our clients, Richard and Patricia Hayes, intend to pursue legal action against you for financial elder abuse and breach of oral contract. Our clients assert that you entered into an agreement to provide financial support for their household expenses, including mortgage payments, and have unilaterally ceased such support, causing them significant financial harm and emotional distress. We demand that you immediately resume mortgage payments and reimburse our clients for legal fees incurred. Failure to comply will result in a lawsuit filed in county court. I read it 3 times, each time feeling more disbelieving. They were threatening to sue me. My own parents were threatening to sue me for stopping voluntary payments for financial elder abuse. I grabbed my laptop and started researching. Financial elder abuse was a real legal concept, but it applied to situations where someone was stealing from or defrauding elderly people, or withholding care from dependent adults. My parents were in their late 50s, fully capable, and I had never stolen anything. I had given them money voluntarily and then stopped. Breach of oral contract was trickier. Had I promised to pay their mortgage forever? I did not think so. I had helped them out during a crisis, but I never said it would be permanent. Still, they could argue I had created an expectation, that they had relied on my payments. I needed a lawyer. The realization hit me like a weight. This was real. My parents were not just guilting me or causing scenes. They were escalating to legal warfare. And even if I was in the right, defending myself would cost money. Money I had been saving to buy my own house. Money that would now go to lawyers. I sat in my apartment that night, the letter on the coffee table in front of me, and felt something shift inside me. This was not about the mortgage anymore. This was not even about Tyler or family dynamics. This was about punishment. My parents wanted to punish me for saying no, for setting a boundary, for not being their endless resource, and they were willing to destroy me to do it. I found a lawyer through a referral from a coworker. David Brennan specialized in family law and had an office in a modest building downtown. He was in his early 40s, with graying temples and a calm demeanor that immediately put me at ease. I met with him on a Saturday morning, bringing every document I could gather. Bank statements showing 3 years of payments. Text messages from my parents. The letter from Baxter and Associates. David reviewed everything methodically, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and gave me a straightforward assessment. They do not have a strong case. Financial elder abuse does not apply here. Your parents are not elderly or dependent, and you did not steal from them or withhold necessary care. You made voluntary gifts, and you stopped. That is your right. As for breach of oral contract, that is harder to prove. Did you ever explicitly promise to pay their mortgage forever? No. I told them I would help them through a rough patch. That was 3 years ago. Then there is no enforceable contract. Verbal agreements for ongoing support are nearly impossible to enforce, especially when you can show the payments were gifts. However, he tapped the letter with his pen. They can make your life miserable trying. Even a frivolous lawsuit requires a defense. It will cost you time, money, and stress, and they know that. How much are we talking? To defend against this? Probably $5,000 to $10,000. Maybe more if it drags out. They might be hoping you will just settle to make it go away. I felt sick. That was money I did not have to spare. What do? We gather evidence. Everything that shows the hostile environment, the fact that they kicked you out, the pattern of taking you for granted. Text messages, emails, anything. We also prepare a response to their lawyer, making it clear you will not be intimidated. Over the next week, I compiled everything. Screenshots of messages from my mother, the voicemail from Uncle Frank, notes about Tyler showing up drunk at my apartment. David drafted a response letter that was polite but firm, essentially saying I had no legal obligation to continue payments and would vigorously defend against any lawsuit. But while I was gathering documents, I stumbled onto something I did not expect. I was going through old bank statements, looking for proof of payments, when I noticed something odd in the mortgage company records. The payment amount had changed twice in the past 5 years. It used to be $1,400. Then it jumped to $1,600. Then to the current $1,800. I called the mortgage company, pretending to be my father, and asked for the payment history. The representative explained that the mortgage had been refinanced twice. Each time, my parents had pulled out equity from the house. The first refinance was 5 years ago for $35,000. The second was 3 years ago for $40,000. $75,000 total, extracted from the house value. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the numbers. Where did that money go? My parents never mentioned refinancing. They certainly never told me they had pulled out equity. $75,000 was a massive amount of money. I started investigating. I checked county records online and found the refinance documents, public information. Both loans were cash-out refinances, meaning my parents received lump sum payments. I tried to think back to those time frames. Had they made any major purchases? Taken any trips? Nothing came to mind. Then I remembered Tyler's various business ventures. The pressure washing company 5 years ago. The lawn care service 3 years ago. The food truck planning that happened around the same time. All of them had needed startup capital. All of them had failed. I texted Tyler directly, something I had not done since the night he showed up drunk at my apartment. "Do you know anything about Mom and Dad refinancing the house?" He responded an hour later, surprisingly coherent. "Yeah. Why? Where did the money go?" A long pause. Then, "Dad gave me money to start businesses. They all failed. Do not tell him I told you." I stared at the message. There it was. $75,000, maybe more, funneled into Tyler's failed dreams. And when the increased mortgage payments became too much, I had stepped in to cover the difference, never knowing I was indirectly funding Tyler's irresponsibility. I forwarded the text exchange to David. He called me that evening. "This is good," he said. "It shows a pattern of financial mismanagement on their part. They increased their debt to fund your brother's ventures, then expected you to bail them out. It undermines any claim they have. Does it help with the lawsuit? It helps establish that you were being taken advantage of. But Jonathan, I need to prepare you. Even with all this evidence, they can still make your life difficult. The legal system does not always move quickly, and it does not always make sense." Week 8, after leaving home, brought another development. David called me at work, his voice urgent. "Your parents filed for an emergency restraining order against you." "What?" "They are claiming you have been harassing and threatening them. The hearing is in 3 days. If the judge grants it, you will be legally barred from contacting them or coming within a certain distance." "But I have not contacted them. I have not been anywhere near them." "I know. This is a tactical move. They are trying to paint you as dangerous and unstable. It could affect your job if you have security clearance or work with sensitive materials." I felt panic rising. I did work on some projects that required clearance. This could destroy my career. "We need to prepare your defense. Can you get character references from your employer? Proof of where you have been. We need to show the judge this is a baseless claim." The next 3 days were a blur of stress. I got a letter from Sharon confirming my work schedule and character. Marcus wrote a statement about my behavior and temperament. I gathered security footage from my apartment building, showing I had been home most evenings. David prepared a counter-narrative showing that my parents were the aggressors, not me. The hearing was on a Wednesday morning in a small courtroom downtown. I sat next to David at a table on the left side. My parents sat across the aisle with their lawyer, Patricia Valdez, a sharp-looking woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and an aggressive demeanor. The judge, a tired-looking man in his 60s, called the case. Patricia stood and began her presentation. She painted me as an angry, unstable son who had been sending threatening messages and showing up unannounced. She submitted printed text messages as evidence. I leaned over to David. "Those messages are taken out of context." He nodded. "I will handle it." Patricia submitted 3 messages. The first said, "You will regret this." The second said, "I am done being your solution." The third said, "Stay away from me." She explained that these messages showed a pattern of threatening behavior and instability. My mother testified next, her voice shaking. She claimed she was afraid of me, that I had become violent and unpredictable. She described coming to my workplace as a desperate attempt to reach me before I did something dangerous. It was masterful manipulation. She took the truth and twisted it just enough to create a completely different narrative. I had never been violent. I had never threatened anyone. But the way she told it, I sounded dangerous. David cross-examined her calmly. "Mrs. Hayes, can you tell the court what Jonathan said when you visited his workplace?" He refused to help us. He was cold and cruel." "Did he threaten you physically?" She hesitated. "No, but his tone was threatening." David nodded. and moved on. Mrs. Hayes, did you or your husband tell Jonathan to get out and never come back? Another hesitation. My husband said that in anger, but we did not mean it literally. So you told him to leave, but you expected him to keep providing financial support? We are family. He has a responsibility. David let that hang in the air for a moment, then showed security footage from my apartment building. This is from the night of June 20th. Can you identify who is at Jonathan's door? The footage showed Tyler, drunk and aggressive, pounding on my door. That is my younger son, Tyler, my mother admitted. And would you say Tyler looks calm and peaceful in this video? She did not answer. David continued systematically dismantling their claims. He showed the judge the text messages in full context. You will regret this had been sent to Tyler after Tyler vandalized my truck, not to my parents. I am done. Being your solution was not a threat, just a boundary statement. Stay away from me was sent after my mother showed up at my workplace. Then I testified. I explained the 3 years of payments. I explained being kicked out. I explained that I had not contacted my parents or gone near their house. I kept my voice steady and my answers clear. The judge took 10 minutes to deliberate. When he returned, his decision was swift. I am denying the restraining order. Mr. Hayes has provided substantial evidence that he has not engaged in threatening behavior. Ceasing voluntary financial support is not harassment. Furthermore, filing frivolous restraining orders wastes court resources. I am warning both parties to handle their disputes through appropriate legal channels. I felt a wave of relief. My parents looked stunned. Patricia gathered her papers quickly, her expression tight. Outside the courthouse, David pulled me aside. You won this round, but I do not think they are done. He was right. 10 minutes later, Patricia approached us on the courthouse steps. She handed David a new document. See you in civil court, she said with a cold smile. David scanned the paper and sighed. They are suing you for unjust enrichment. The claim is that you lived rent-free with them for years while working, so you owe them back rent. They have calculated it at $45,000. They are also suing for emotional distress. I felt the ground shift under me. How can they claim unjust enrichment when I was paying for their mortgage? They are arguing that was separate from your living expenses years ago. It is creative lawyering. It probably will not hold up, but it will cost you money to defend against. How much? More than you have already spent. Patricia walked away, leaving us standing on the courthouse steps. I looked at David, exhaustion washing over me. They are going to bleed me dry even if they lose. Are not they? That is the strategy. They want you to give up, settle, and resume payments. It is not about justice. It is about forcing you back into your role. I cannot afford this. Then we need to find another way. Let me think about options. I drove back to work, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. My parents had lost the restraining order, but they had not retreated. They had escalated. And now they were going to drag me through civil court, racking up legal bills, trying to break me financially and emotionally. This was not about a mortgage anymore. This was war. The civil lawsuit sat like a weight on my chest for the next week. David estimated the defense would cost anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, depending on how long it dragged out. My savings were already depleting. I had spent $4,000 on legal fees so far, and that was just the beginning. At work, I was distracted and exhausted. I made it through my tasks on autopilot, going through the motions. Sharon noticed and pulled me aside again. This is affecting your work. I am not saying that to criticize you. I am saying it because I care. You need to take care of this situation before it destroys everything you have built. I know. I just do not know how. They are willing to spend money they do not have just to hurt me. Then you need to change the game. Stop playing defense and figure out how to go on offense. I did not know what she meant, but her words stuck with me. That weekend, Marcus called and asked if I wanted to grab lunch. We met at a diner on the edge of town, a place with worn booths and strong coffee. Marcus brought someone with him, a woman I had not met before. "This is Amanda Harper," Marcus said. "She is my wife's sister. I told her about your situation, and she had some thoughts." Amanda was in her late 30s, with curly auburn hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She shook my hand firmly. "I am an investigative journalist for the Herald," she explained. "Marcus told me what you are dealing with, and honestly, something does not add up. Your parents' behavior seems extreme, even for a family dispute. I would like to look into their finances, if you are willing." I hesitated. What would that involve? Public records, mostly. Property records, business filings, court documents, all stuff that is legally accessible. I would not do anything shady. But sometimes families have secrets that only come out when someone looks carefully. I thought about it. Part of me felt uncomfortable digging into my parents' lives, but another part of me remembered the $75,000 in refinances, the money funneled to Tyler, the years of being taken for granted. "Okay," I said. "What do you need from me?" "Just background information. Timeline of events. Names. I will do the rest." Over the next 2 weeks, Amanda worked her investigation. She started with property records, confirming the refinances I had already discovered. Then she went deeper. She found that my father's construction business, Hayes Building Solutions, had filed for bankruptcy 6 years ago. I knew the business had struggled, but I did not know it had gone under completely. My father had never told me. Amanda found liens against my parents' property from unpaid contractors. 3 different small business owners had filed judgments against my father for jobs he had taken deposits on but never completed. The amounts ranged from $8,000 to $15,000 each. Combined with other debts, my father owed over $50,000 in judgments. She tracked down one of the contractors, a man named Bill Morrison who ran a small electrical company. Bill agreed to talk to her. Amanda called me after that interview. "Bill told me your father took a $12,000 deposit to wire a new construction house, then disappeared. Never did the work, never returned the money. Bill had to hire another electrician and ate the loss. He said your father had a reputation in the industry for shady dealing." I sat in my apartment, listening to this, feeling sick. I knew my father's business had struggled, but I did not know he had cheated people. I did not know he had left a trail of victims. But the biggest discovery came at the end of week 12. Amanda called me, her voice tight with urgency. "I found something. Tyler has a criminal record." "What?" 2 DUIs in the past 4 years. 1 arrest for assault from a bar fight 3 years ago. All of it was quietly handled, charges reduced or dismissed. But it cost money. A lot of money. "How much?" I tracked down the lawyers who represented him. Between the 3 cases, legal fees were probably north of $30,000. Maybe more. $30,000. On top of the money for failed businesses, I thought about the $75,000 from the refinances. It all made sense now. My parents had been covering Tyler's mistakes, his legal problems, his irresponsibility, by borrowing against their house. And when the debt became too much, I had unknowingly stepped in to keep them afloat. Amanda continued. "I have enough for an article. A careful one that does not name your parents directly, but includes enough detail that people will recognize the story. It is about financial abuse within families, about favoritism and manipulation. Would you be okay with that?" I thought about it for a long moment. Publishing this would make everything public. It would humiliate my parents. It would burn whatever remaining bridges existed. But they had already burned those bridges. They were suing me, trying to paint me as abusive and dangerous, bleeding me dry with legal fees. Why should I protect them when they were actively trying to destroy me? "Yes," I said. "Do it." The article ran in the Herald on a Tuesday morning. The headline read, When Family Becomes Financial Abuse, One Man's Story. Amanda had written it carefully, focusing on the broader issue of adult children being exploited by parents, using my situation as a case study without naming names directly. But she included enough specific details that anyone local would recognize it. The refinances, the failed businesses, the lawsuit, the restraining order attempt. She interviewed 2 of the contractors my father had defrauded, letting them tell their stories. She included statistics about financial abuse and quotes from family therapists about toxic dynamics. It was a well-researched, balanced piece that happened to completely vindicate me. The article went viral locally. Within hours, it was the most read story on the Herald's website. By afternoon, it had been picked up by regional news outlets. My phone started buzzing with messages, but this time they were different. My cousin Jessica, who had condemned me weeks earlier, sent a long apology. I had no idea. "I am so sorry for judging you without knowing the full story." Others followed. Aunts, uncles, old family friends. Some apologized. Some just expressed shock. A few shared their own stories of being manipulated by my parents or dealing with Tyler's problems over the years. Uncle Frank called and left a voicemail. His tone was completely different. "Jonathan, I owe you an apology. I had no idea what you were dealing with. Your father lied to me. I am sorry." But the most significant response came from Patricia Valdez, my parents' lawyer. David called me at work with the news. Patricia withdrew from the case. Her email says irreconcilable differences with clients and new information. She does not want to be associated with them anymore. What does that mean? It means she probably realized your parents lied to her about key facts. Lawyers do not like being made to look foolish. She is protecting her reputation. Your parents are now without legal representation. Can they get another lawyer? They can try, but most lawyers will want a retainer up front, and good lawyers will do their research. After that article, representing your parents is a losing proposition. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. The narrative had shifted. The people who mattered now knew the truth. My parents' manipulation had been exposed, and their legal attack was falling apart. But there was one more development. 2 days after the article ran, I received an email from my parents' mortgage company. It was a standard foreclosure notice. Your account is 90 days delinquent. Foreclosure proceedings will begin in 60 days unless the full amount owed is paid. They were going to lose the house. After 3 refinances, after years of mismanagement, after spending equity on Tyler's problems, they had reached the end. They had 60 days to come up with over $5,000 in back payments plus fees, or they would be foreclosed on. I stared at the email for a long time. I could pay it. I still had enough in savings, barely. 1 transfer and their house would be saved. I could be the hero again, the responsible son who fixes everything. But I closed the email without responding. Sharon's words echoed in my mind. Stop playing defense and go on offense. This was not my problem to fix. It never had been. My parents had made choices. They had borrowed money they could not repay. They had enabled Tyler instead of holding him accountable. They had kicked me out when I set a boundary. These were consequences. Natural, logical consequences. And for once in my life, I was going to let them happen. Week 13 brought an unexpected call. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and I was leaving work when my phone rang. Mom calling. I almost declined, but something made me answer. Her voice was different, small, defeated. None of the anger or manipulation from before. "Jonathan, we are going to lose the house." "I know." There was a long silence. Then, "We made mistakes. We did not realize how much you were doing." "That is not an apology." "I know." She took a shaky breath. "Your father is too proud to call, but I am calling. Is there any way you could help us one more time?" There it was, the ask, the expectation that I would save them again. Part of me, the part that had been conditioned for 30 years to fix their problems, wanted to say yes, but a stronger part, the part that had grown over the past 13 weeks, said no. I have thought about this a lot, I said, keeping my voice steady. For 3 years, I sacrificed my own future to protect yours. I delayed buying my own home, building my own life, because I thought that is what family meant. But you never saw it. You never valued it. And when I set one boundary, you kicked me out and tried to destroy me. Jonathan, I am not finished. You did not just ask me to leave. You filed a restraining order to make me look dangerous. You sued me for unjust enrichment. You sent Uncle Frank and half the family after me with lies. You tried to ruin my reputation and bleed me dry with legal fees. All because I stopped being your ATM. Silence on the other end. I am not helping you keep that house. That house represents everything wrong with how this family operates. Tyler's mistakes were funded with borrowed money. My responsibility was taken for granted. And when I finally said no, you weaponized the legal system against me. I paused, gathering my thoughts, but I am not heartless. Here is what I will do. I will help you find an apartment you can afford on your actual income. I will help you downsize and budget. I will teach you what I had to learn at 16, how to live within your means. But I will not be your ATM anymore. I will not enable the dysfunction. If you want a relationship with me, it starts with respect and accountability. That is non-negotiable. My mother was crying quietly. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. You are right. We failed you. It was not a full apology. It was not everything I deserved. But it was the first crack in the facade, the first admission of wrongdoing. Do you accept my terms? I asked. Yes. Then we start over. On my terms, with boundaries. I will help you through this, but not by throwing money at the problem. I will help you learn to stand on your own feet. Thank you, she whispered and hung up. Over the next 2 weeks, I helped my parents navigate the reality of their situation. It was not easy. My father barely spoke to me, his pride wounded. My mother was more open but still struggled to fully acknowledge the damage they had caused. Tyler moved out to stay with a friend, finally forced to face the fact that the gravy train had ended. I helped them find a 2-bedroom apartment in an older complex on the south side. The rent was $900 a month, half what their mortgage had been. I sat with them and created a budget based on their actual income. No more phantom help from me, no more borrowing against the future. Just reality. The foreclosure proceeded. The house sold at auction for less than they owed, but at least they were released from the debt. They moved into the apartment on a Saturday in late July. Marcus helped me load the moving truck with their essential furniture. My father worked silently, his jaw tight. My mother cried periodically, but kept going. There was one moment that afternoon that stuck with me. My father and I were carrying a dresser down the front steps of the house he was losing. He stumbled slightly, and I steadied him. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in weeks. You turned out stronger than I gave you credit for, he said quietly. It was not an apology. It was not acknowledgement of what he had done. But it was something, a recognition, however small, that I was not the person he thought I was. We finished moving them in by evening. The apartment was cramped compared to the house, but it was functional. My mother stood in the small living room, looking around at the second-hand furniture and blank walls. We will make it work, she said, more to herself than anyone else. Over the following weeks, I maintained strict boundaries. I visited once a month, no more. I did not give them money, but I did help them find resources, food pantries, utility assistance programs, free financial counseling. I taught them how to clip coupons and shop sales, skills I had learned as a teenager when they were struggling. Tyler eventually found work at a warehouse, loading trucks on the night shift. It was not glamorous, but it was steady. He and I did not talk much, but the hostility faded into indifference. We were no longer enemies, just two people who shared DNA and not much else. My mother slowly began to understand what I had been doing for years. She apologized more sincerely one evening, in September, sitting at her small kitchen table with a cup of coffee. "I did not know how hard it was," she admitted. "Paying bills, making ends meet. You were doing all this while we just assumed everything was fine, and we treated you like you were the problem. You did. I am sorry." She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I am sorry for not seeing you, for not defending you, for letting your father run you off, for everything. It was the apology I needed. Not perfect, not complete, but real." My father never fully apologized. He was too proud, too stubborn, but his behavior changed. He stopped criticizing me. He stopped comparing me to Tyler. He listened when I talked instead of dismissing me. It was not love, exactly, but it was respect. And respect was something I had never gotten from him before. 6 months after leaving, I stood in the empty living room of my own house. It was a small ranch-style home in a quiet neighborhood, 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, with a fenced backyard and a 2-car garage. I had closed on it the week before, using the savings I had rebuilt after the legal fees were finally settled. The house was mine, not my parents', not Tyler's, mine. I had bought it with money I earned, and no one could take it from me or guilt me into giving it up. I walked through the empty rooms, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors, and felt something I had not felt in years: peace. The journey to get here had been brutal. I had been kicked out of my family, publicly attacked, dragged through legal proceedings, and nearly destroyed financially. But I had survived, more than survived. I had established boundaries, learned to say no, and built a life on my own terms. I thought about everything that had happened. The night my father screamed at me to leave, the moment I canceled the mortgage payment, the phone call where I told my mother no, the legal battles, the article that exposed the truth. Each moment had been painful, but each one had also been necessary. I had learned something fundamental about family and love. Real love requires respect. Without respect, love is just obligation, dressed up in nicer language. My parents had loved me in their way, but they had not respected me. They had seen me as a resource, a solution to their problems, not as a person with my own needs and dreams. Setting boundaries had not been cruel, it had been essential. And letting them face the consequences of their choices had not been abandonment. It had been the most loving thing I could do, because it gave them a chance to grow. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. I opened it to find Marcus and his wife, along with Amanda the journalist who had helped change the narrative. They brought housewarming gifts, a bottle of wine and a potted plant. "Welcome home," Marcus said with a grin. We spent the evening sitting on folding chairs in my empty living room, eating pizza and talking. Sharon from work stopped by later with a small toolkit. "Every new homeowner needs one," she said. David, my lawyer, sent a congratulations card with a note that made me laugh. "Hope you never need my services again, but call if you do." As the evening wound down and my friends left, I sat alone in my new house. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from my mother. A photo of her and my father in their small apartment, sitting at the kitchen table. The message said, "It is not much, but it is what we can afford. Thank you for teaching us that." I looked at the photo for a long time. My parents looked older, more tired, but also somehow lighter. The burden of pretending, of keeping up appearances, was gone. They were living within their means for the first time in decades. It was not the life they had imagined, but it was honest. I saved the photo and set my phone down. Tomorrow I would start furnishing my house, making it a home. But tonight, I just sat in the silence and reflected on everything I had learned. People will take from you, as long as you let them. That is not cynicism, it is reality. Setting boundaries is not cruel, it is necessary. And sometimes, The greatest act of love is refusing to enable destruction. I did not abandon my family. I saved myself. And in doing that, I gave them a chance to save themselves too. They are learning to stand on their own feet now, learning skills they should have developed decades ago. It is hard for them, and it is not my job to make it easier. I also learned that chosen family matters as much as blood family. Marcus, Sharon, Amanda, David. These people showed up for me when my own family tried to tear me down. They valued me not for what I could give them, but for who I was. That is the kind of family worth investing in. The mortgage I paid for 3 years? That money is gone, and I will never get it back. But I do not regret it anymore. It bought me something more valuable than money. It bought me clarity. It showed me exactly what my relationship with my parents was based on, and it forced me to make a choice about who I wanted to be. I chose to be someone who sets boundaries, someone who values himself enough to walk away from toxicity, even when it hurts. Someone who understands that being the responsible one does not mean being the doormat one. My father told me to get out and never come back, thinking it would break me. Instead, it freed me. It gave me permission to stop sacrificing myself on the altar of their dysfunction. It gave me space to become the person I was meant to be, not the person they needed me to be. I still see my parents once a month. The relationship is cordial, but distant. We talk about surface things, weather and work, and current events. The deep connection I once hoped for will probably never exist, and I have made peace with that. Not all families are meant to be close. Some relationships are healthier at arm's length. Tyler and I exchange texts occasionally, mostly around holidays. He is working steadily now and has been sober for 4 months. I am cautiously hopeful for him, but not invested in his success. His life is his to build or destroy. I am not responsible for fixing him, and I never was. As I sat in my empty house that night, I realized something profound. For 30 years, I had been trying to earn my family's love and respect by being useful, by solving their problems, by sacrificing my own needs for theirs. And it never worked. They never valued me more. They just expected more. The moment I stopped being useful, they turned on me. And that told me everything I needed to know. They did not love me. They loved what I did for them. There is a difference. And understanding that difference saved my life. Now, I live differently. I give when I choose to give, not because I am obligated. I help when I have capacity, not at the expense of my own well-being. I say no without guilt, and I surround myself with people who respect those boundaries. The path to get here was painful. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I was being cruel. There were moments I almost gave in, almost sent the money, almost went back to being the person they wanted. But I held firm. And that strength, that ability to stand alone when everyone was telling me I was wrong, that is the greatest gift I ever gave myself. So to anyone listening to this who is in a similar situation, who is being used by family, who is sacrificing themselves for people who do not appreciate it, I want to say this. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Blood does not give people the right to drain you dry. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for them, is to step back and let them figure it out. It will hurt. People will judge you. You will be called selfish and cruel and heartless, but you will survive. And on the other side, you will find something you never had before: freedom, peace, self-respect. My parents lost their house. That is true. But they are learning to live within their means now. They are learning skills and facing realities they avoided for decades. Is that cruel? Or is it the natural consequence of choices they made? I think it is the latter. I did not destroy my family. I refused to prop up a dysfunctional system. There is a difference. And now, standing in my own home that I bought with money I earned and saved, I can finally say, I am proud of myself. Not for the house, not for the money, but for the strength it took to say no, for the courage it took to walk away, for the wisdom it took to understand that enabling is not love. My father told me to get out and never come back. So I did, and I built a better life without them. That is not revenge. That is just growth. If you have made it this far, I have a question for you. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between family obligation and your own well-being? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your story in the comments below. Share your experience, support others who are going through similar struggles, and let us build a community of people who understand that boundaries are not betrayal. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps others who need to hear this message find it. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about overcoming family dysfunction, setting boundaries, and building the life you deserve. And share this video with anyone who might need to hear that it is okay to put themselves first. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here, for witnessing my journey, and for understanding that sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. I hope my experience gives you strength if you are facing something similar. You are not alone. You are not wrong for wanting to be valued and respected. And you deserve a life that does not require you to sacrifice your own happiness for people who will never appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. Set your boundaries. Build your own life. And remember that family should lift you up, not tear you down. If they cannot do that, you have every right to create distance and protect your peace. Until next time, be well.